Rain fell on the night market like thin silver threads. Crowds moved under neon signs. Sellers shouted prices and drones hummed above. In that noise and light, a small shape slid along the wall, quiet as smoke. Her name was Lyra. She kept her. Head low and her hands tight under a torn cloak, people brushed past her shoulder, but none of them turned. Bowls dropped, elbows hit her. A cartwheel almost rolled over her foot. Still, no one looked. No one said sorry. A small metal badge rested against her neck. It was oval, dull, and warm, and it hummed like a sick insect. Lyra called it the veil. When it hummed, strong eyes slid away from her, like she was only air. When it hummed weak, she felt a sting on her skin, a warning not to touch. She moved from shadow to shadow, counting breaths, counting steps. At the dumpling stall, steam rose, sweet and salty. Lyra waited until the cook turned, then lifted one hot dumpling with quick fingers. She swallowed fast, almost choking, and the warmth reached her empty stomach. No one shouted, "Thief!" The veil still worked. But the rain told a different story. It hit her hood, rolled down, and made little ripples on the puddles where her feet stood. A drone paused above and scanned the lane, then drifted on, fooled by the crowd. Lyra exhaled, slow and careful. She did not remember the last time someone spoke to her. She did not remember the last time anyone said her name. The market had swallowed years. One long night stretched over time. Sometimes she whispered to herself to prove she was real. "I am here," she would say. "I am not a ghost." Near the alley mouth, a vendor's light flickered. A human man stood there, tall, tired eyes, tools hanging from a belt. His name was Jace Miller. Though Lyra did not know it yet, he stared at the flicker, then at the rain. Then at the flow of people. He frowned, as if something in the picture did not fit. His gaze slid across the street and stopped. Stopped on the shape that every other mind skipped. Lyra felt it like heat on her skin, a line of attention that did not break. She froze. Fingers curling around the edge of her cloak. No one was supposed to see her. That was the rule. That was the curse, but the man looked straight into her eyes, steady and calm. He did not shout. He did not point. He only breathed and then said to soft words, "I see you," he said. The veil hummed harder, angry. The badge grew warmer. Lyra's heart kicked. Her feet wanted to run. Her throat would not move. Was he a trap, a hunter, a trick from the ones who tagged her, or was he just a man behind him? A security screen blinked red for a moment. A notice scrolled fast. A bounty code. A warning about an anomaly, up in the dark. A pair of drones turned their lenses toward the alley. Jace lifted one hand, not fast, not loud. And his voice stayed gentle. "Run with me now," he said. "Please." Lyra looked at the crowd that never saw her, then at the man who did. The drones tilted. The first beam of a scanner swept the wet stone near her feet. Her choice was a thin bridge over a long drop. She took one step, then another, and the human matched her pace. Together they slipped into the narrow alley as the scanner light touched the place where she had stood. Behind them, alarm tones began to rise. The night market kept shouting, but the sound had changed. Hunt had started. And Lyra was no longer alone. The alley was narrow and full of wet pipes. Jace moved first, steady and fast. Lyra followed 2 steps behind, listening to the city breathe. Scanner beams swept across the mouth of the alley and then slid away. Water dripped from broken vents like slow clocks. "Left," Jace said, soft like a secret. They passed a locked door, a trash bin, a sleeping cat with one metal ear. The hum of the veil grew hotter on Lyra's skin. Warning and pain together, she wanted to pull the badge off. But the memory of shocks kept her hand down. "Why can you see me?" she asked, her voice rough from silence. Jace looked back only once. eyes kind but alert. "I think the badge tricks most brains," he said. "Maybe it sends a ignore signal they cannot fight. I am human, maybe it does not." "Work on me, Lyra," tasted the words like rain. Most minds slipped past her like oil, and here was one that did not. She did not know if she should be happy or afraid. Both feelings lived in her chest like twin birds beating wings. A red drone buzzed above the alley, searching for heat. Jace snapped his fingers, and a small round machine jumped from his belt. It was Pip, a palm-sized repair drone with a single bright eye. "Hi," Pip chirped in a tiny voice. Cheerful, even in danger. Lyra blinked. Surprised by the sound, Pip threw a thin net of static into the air. For a moment, the drone above flickered and drifted past, confused. Not long. Jace whispered, "We need cover." He kicked a rusted grate loose and slid inside a maintenance shaft. Lyra followed, shoulders scraping cold metal. The shaft sloped down into a forgotten service room. Old posters peeled off the walls, wires hung like vines. Jace's workshop sat inside like a secret nest, tables, tools, parts, and a heater that clicked and breathed. For the first time in many nights, Lyra felt warm. "Sit," Jace said, pointing to a stool. He made tea from a tiny burner, blew on it, and handed it to her. Steam touched her face, and she closed her eyes. "I am not a trap," he said. "I fix things. That is all. People bring me machines no one else wants." Lyra held the cup with two hands. "People do not bring me anything," she said. "They do not bring me a look." Jace nodded, as if that sentence was a broken gear he already understood. "Let me scan the badge," he asked. "No touching, only look." Lyra lifted her chin, fear sharp in her stomach. "If it hurts, we stop," Jace said, and Pip hovered close. A small blue light spread over the oval metal, reading its secret marks on a wall screen. Lines of code woke up like thin insects. Pip whistled low. A worried sound. "What?" Lyra asked, fingers tight on the edge of the stool. Jace's face changed, careful and serious. "There is a lock," he said. "Not only a lock, a trap." The picture on the screen turned red at the center of the badge. "Deadman trigger," Jace said, slow, choosing each word. "If someone tries to force this open, it will send a strong current. It will stop the heart it touches." Lyra did not move. The heater clicked. The rain whispered inside the pipes. "So I cannot be free," she said. Not angry, only tired. Jace shook his head, a hard no. "You can," he said. "But we must be smarter than the men who made this. We need the safe key from a factory server, and a special pin to make a soft door." Pip bobbed in the air and flashed a tiny thumbs up on its screen. Lyra looked from the drone to the man. The world had been one long night, and now there was a small light. "Then we go," she said, voice steady this time. Jace smiled once, quick and bright. "Tomorrow," he said, "before the city wakes." Above them, somewhere far, sirens started to bloom. The hunt moved across districts like a cold wind, but inside the little workshop, a plan began to live. And the hidden girl was not only hidden anymore. Dawn was only a pale line behind the station windows. Jace's workshop smelled like warm metal and tea. Pip floated in slow circles, small, eye blinking. Lyra sat near the heater with a blanket on her shoulders, hands steady at last. "Tell me." "About the badge," Jace said, voice gentle. Lyra touched the oval with two fingers. "Careful of the sting. It was locked on me when I was little." She said, "Traders said I was a burden. So they sold me cheap and made me invisible. The city forgot me, and then I forgot my own face." Jace listened without moving, the kind of stillness that felt strong, not cold. He set a tray of tools on the bench. Thin wires, soft probes, a magnifier like a glass moon. "I fix things no one wants," he said. A small smile that did not reach his eyes. "Broken vents, slow doors, orphan machines. I give them another chance. He looked at Lyra as if the sentence had two meanings, and both were true. Pip beeped and projected a clean image of the badge onto the wall. Marks rose on the screen like scars on metal skin. There, Pip chirped, highlighting a tiny stamp near the edge. Cade Systems, the letters said, sharp and proud. Lyra felt the name like cold water. Marshall Cade runs security and owns Cade Systems. Jace said he sells the locks and holds the keys. On another panel, Jace drew a simple map of the lower city. Bridges, drains, and dark boxes that meant cameras. The safe key lives in a factory server under East Bridge, he said. If we copy that key, we can open a soft door inside the badge, but the trap, Lyra said, voice tight. We will not force it, Jace answered. We will sing the correct note and make it relax. For that, I need a quantum pin to time the signal. Scrapyard has one. Old ship parts. Good junk. Lyra stood, blanket falling to the stool. I will come, she said, no shake in her voice. I know patrol times. I can move where. Eyes forget to look. Jace studied her, then nodded once. Then we train for silence, he said. They made simple hand signs. Stop, go, hide, climb, wait, split, return. Pip added a tiny icon language on its screen. A thumbs up, a warning triangle. A little clock. They practiced in the narrow room, around tables, through pipes, under the low beam that always hit Jace's head. Once, Lyra laughed, short and surprised. And the sound stayed warm in the workshop air. Outside, the city woke, slow and heavy. Vendors turned lights on. Drones checked batteries. Billboards stretched their colors across the rain. Jace packed a small bag with tools and wrapped the heater. Coil in a fire blanket. If we do not come back fast, this place goes dark by itself, he said. Lyra tied her hood and checked her boots. They left by the maintenance shaft. Steam kissed their faces. The day smelled like wet stone and oil on the wall of a side street. A public screen changed ads and flashed a line of red text, wanted, the word came and went like a blink, an anomaly with a human guide. Reward listed, no details. Lyra pulled the hood lower. Jace moved them into a line of shoppers to blend their steps. Above the road, a gray camera winked, a tiny red dot alive for just a breath. Far away in a clean office, Marshall Cade leaned toward his monitor. He slowed the footage with 2 fingers. Saw a human shoulder, saw Rain bending around a shape that did not register right. He smiled, the kind of smile that counted minutes like money. Found you, he said. And the city began to turn its heavy head in their direction. Asterisk, the scrapyard spread like a metal desert under gray sky. Cranes stood like tall bones, heaps of broken ships slept in long rows. An electric fence crackled with a slow blue heartbeat. Watchtowers watched with bored eyes. And to guard dogs wore metal collars that hissed. Jace and Lyra lay flat on a wet roof across the road. Pip hovered low under the lip of the roof. I dimmed to hide its glow. There, Jace whispered, pointing at a storage shed near the center. Quantum pin is inside a glass case next to the parts register. Lyra studied the ground between them and the shed. She traced a path with her. Finger, shadow to shadow, container to container. Cameras spin every 8 seconds. She said, voice steady, dogs run a loop. Left side first, then right. 16 steps each way. Jace nodded. Respect in his quiet look. He pulled a small square from his bag. A smoke tile. When this pops, the North Tower will think there is a fire. He said, guards will move. We go in fast, we come out faster. Pip showed a tiny thumbs up and a warning triangle, 2 minutes window. It chirped, then softened its light again. They waited for the wind to push the smell of rain across the fence. Jace pressed the tile and slid it down a gutter into dry paper and oil rags. Smoke woke, slow, and then greedy. Alarms blinked. Red lights spun. A siren coughed twice and then howled. Guards shouted. Towers turned. Dogs dragged their chains to the north. Go, Jace said, and they dropped from the roof to the ground. Soft as cloth. Lyra moved first, cloak hugging scrap shadows. Her veil hummed at a low, tired note. Not perfect, not gone. She slid along a stack of engine rings, climbed a ladder with hands that knew ladders. Jace followed, his boots careful, his breath a quiet count inside the yard. The world smelled like rust and battery acid. The shed door was coated. A green panel waiting for a handprint that was not theirs. Pip kissed the panel with a thin wire. Numbers rolled like dice and then froze unlucky. The lock clicked. They entered a narrow aisle of labeled boxes and hanging cables. At the far wall sat the glass case, white light on a small silver pin. It looked like nothing. It's just a thin tooth of polished metal, but Jace's eyes softened in the way mechanics. Love small, perfect things. 30 seconds, Pip whispered. Jace lifted a suction tool and placed it on the glass. A circle cut itself slow, almost silent. Lyra watched the aisle, counting the camera swings, counting the dog steps, counting. Her heart, her veil trembled. A glitch like a skip in an old song. A worker turned the corner. Saw a ripple where nothing should be. His brow folded, his mouth opened. Hey, Lyra moved, fast and clean. She bumped a hanging cable. A cascade of bolts fell like rain, clattering down the aisle like angry coins. The worker flinched and looked the other way. Jace's hand closed on the quantum pin. He slipped it into a padded tube. Footsteps hammered outside. Smoke found this door. Alarms argued with each other. Back path, Lyra said, pointing to a service hatch behind a coil rack. They slid into a low tunnel that smelled like cold iron and old rain. Above them, radios crackled. Dogs barked like broken engines. Pip led with a tiny map on its screen. Left, right, up. They climbed a rusty ladder and kicked open a grate onto a slanted roof. The roof fed to a cargo slide that ran down to the alley. Ride, Jace said. Already halfway onto the slick metal, Lyra sat in front and held the tube with both hands. They pushed off, the slide sang. Wind slapped their faces, halfway down. A drone spotted their movement and fired a dart that bit the rail. Sparks leaped, the slide shook. Jace wrapped his arms around Lyra to steady them. Pip dived at the drone and flashed a burst of static. Not strong, but brave. The drone swirled drunkenly and hit a sign. Metal rang like a bell. They landed hard. In the alley and rolled behind a stack of crates, breath came back in sharp bites. The pin was still in Lyra's hands. Jace laughed once, shaky and real. Got it, he said. We really got it. A public screen on the wall blinked alive. Rain streaking its face, the bounty notice grew larger. The reward doubled, images sharpened. Jace's face was clear now. And next to it, a strange soft outline that matched Lyra's height. From the tower speakers, Marshal Cade's voice rolled like cold iron. To the citizens, he said, the anomaly is no ghost. She walks with a human. Sirens turned toward the alley. Blue light washed the wet bricks. Lyra gripped the pin tighter and looked at Jace. Run, she said. And this time he did not have to ask. They sprinted into the maze as the first drone dropped into the mouth of the alley, its lens waking bright. Rain followed them back to the workshop like a cold shadow. Jace sealed the hatch and wiped water from his face. Pip shook itself in the air, little sparks clicking off its frame. Lyra held the padded tube with both hands, careful as if it was a warm egg. Good work, Jace said, voice low but bright. He cleared a bench and set down a soft mat. From the tube, he slid the quantum pin into the light. It shone like a thin silver tooth, sharp and perfect. Pip projected the badge diagram on the wall. Again, lines and numbers moved like a small city map. There Jace said, tapping the heartbeat line. "We time the opening with your pulse, not against it." Lyra sat, back straight. "Breathing slow? Will it hurt?" she asked, eyes steady. "A little sting," Jace said. "Honest. Not brave talk, only true talk. If it hurts, more than little." "We stop." He fixed a soft sensor to Lyra's wrist. Her pulse appeared on the wall, a climbing and falling hill. Jace soldered to hair-thin wires and kissed them to the badge edge. Pip counted down in a whisper, 3, 2, 1. "Now." The pin sang a silent note inside the metal. Lyra felt a quick bite, then warmth, then quiet, on the wall. A red lock turned orange, then pale. "Come on," Jace said under his breath, hands. Still, a click sounded, tiny, like a grain of sand breaking. Numbers shifted. Power reading slid down fast and then stopped. 15%, Pip chirped, happy and worried at the same time. Jace let out a breath he was holding, and Lyra let one go too. The hum against Lyra's skin softened for the first time since she could remember. The badge was not the loudest thing in the room. She lifted her chin and felt light on her throat like a small sunrise. "I can breathe," she said, surprised by her own voice, but the change carried a shadow with it. Outside the hatch, footsteps passed and paused. Strangers' eyes dragged across the door and then moved on. Lyra peeked through a vent slit and saw a market boy stop mid-step. He looked toward the hatch, confused, as if he had heard a name. "The field is weak now," Jay said, pointing to the graph. "Some aliens will notice you sometimes. It is a good sign and a bad sign. It means we are close, and it means Cade will smell us on a tower miles away." Signals stacked like cards. Marshal Cade traced a bright thread through the city noise. "Soft key signature," his tech said, hands moving fast. "Source block is Sector 12, low power. Engineer shop may be." In the workshop, Pip flashed a warning triangle. "Ping on the line," it whispered. "Someone is sniffing." Jace closed 3 switches and killed 2 cables. The screen went dark. "We cannot finish the unlock here," he said, voice tight but calm. "We go to the bridge server," Lyra said at once. "We steal the safe key direct," Jace nodded, already packing tools. "We erase your ID from the route so the badge has nothing to obey." He wrapped the quantum pin in cloth and slid it into his boot. Pip dimmed its light to a moon glow. Lyra pulled her hood, then stopped and pushed it back. If some eyes could see her now, let them, she thought. Let them see she is not a ghost. A vibration ran through the pipes, small at first, then hard. Jace looked up, face changing from plan to danger. "Charges," he said. The word dry as dust. Pip screamed a short beep. All icon lights red. The door blew inward in a cough of fire and smoke. Metal screamed, tables jumped, the heater died. Figures in gray armor filled the hatch with blue lenses and black rifles. On the ground, a voice shouted, cold and proud, Cade's voice. Carried in their radios like iron rain, Jace threw his arm across Lyra and yanked her behind the bench. Sparks rained, wood popped. The air tasted like burned coins. Pip darted into the smoke to blind the first 2 helmets. "Brave and small. Bridge now," Jay said, grabbing Lyra's hand. They ran through the back shaft as a second blast ripped the room. Heat chased them like a red mouth. Behind, the workshop broke and fell. Their quiet nest turning to ash, ahead. The tunnel opened toward the east bridge, and the storm outside began to roar. The tunnel spat them into rain and hard wind. East Bridge stretched like a silver spine high above the neon city. Traffic hummed under clear plates. Storm lights flashed. Alarms bled into thunder. At the center rose a thick pillar. the server heart doors of pale metal, and a single green eye. 60 seconds when we start, Jace said. Breath thin but steady. Pip hovered close. Its tiny eye bright and brave. Lyra pushed wet hair from her face and looked at the dark river of streets below. Her hands were cold, but her eyes were calm too. Drones climbed the air like black fish. Lenses open, Jace slid the quantum pin from his boot and pressed it to the green eye. Pip fed a whisper of code like a song under the hum of the storm. The door sighed and opened a hand's width, then more. Inside, the server room glowed blue and white. Racks purred, cables breathed, floor cold as ice under glass. Hold the door, Jace said, dropping to a terminal, fingers fast. Lyra braced a pipe in the hinge and planted her feet wide. Timer, Pip chirped. A small clock on its screen. 60. Jace found the badge's serial buried under fake names. He started. The wipe, the numbers began to fall like rain off a roof. Do not stop, Lyra said, voice low. As the first drone slid into the doorway and sniffed heat, she snapped the door. Metal bit the drone's head. Sparks jumped. The second drone fired a wire that hissed across the frame. Lyra grabbed the wire with a cloth and looped it around the pipe. The pull ripped the first drone free and threw it into the storm. 40, Pip said, light dimming as it jammed the radio band. Boots hit the bridge outside, heavy and sure. Blue lenses moved in the rain, rifles up. Marshal Cade walked in their shadow like a thin blade. He did not rush. He did not shout. You were worth more unseen, he said, almost kind, almost bored. The city is softer when it forgets some people. Lyra's fingers tightened on the pipe, her jaw hard. She kicked a wall valve. Steam punched across the doorway like white fists. Guards coughed. Their aim shook. Bullets chewed the frame and sang off the server racks. 30, Pip whispered. Little voice shaking. Jace's hands flew. Lines of code slid and locked. Like teeth, the badge on Lyra's throat grew warm, then warmer, then quiet. She felt the hum change into a slow silence. On the screen, the last link broke. Route cleared, Jace said. Eyes wet with rain and relief. 20, Pip said. And then it made a small sound like a goodbye. Its jammer burned bright and then dark. It fell to the floor smoking. The sudden quiet let Cade step closer. Rifle level, back from the edge, he said. But his eyes were on the badge. Jace hit the final command. The collar clicked open like a shell splitting. Metal fell cold into Lyra's hand. She stared, shocked, then smiled, small and real. She threw the dead badge into the storm, and it vanished. A gray coin swallowed by rain. Cade's mouth twitched. A line, not a smile. He fired. The shot cracked the blue light. Jace moved without. Thinking, he pushed Lyra aside. The round caught his shoulder and spun him. He hit the rail. Metal screamed. His feet slipped on wet glass. Lyra lunged, fingers catching his wrist at the last breath. Wind tore at them. The city yawned below like a dark sea. Guards shouted. Another drone climbed the door. The pipe began to bend. Jace looked up at her. Pain and a strange calm in his face. Do not let go, he said. And the storm answered with thunder. Her grip burned, her arms shook, but she held. The bridge lights flickered. The world narrowed to a wrist and a promise. And the girl who once was invisible refused to release the only hand that ever saw her. Wind pulled at Jace's coat while Lyra held his wrist. Her arms shook, her teeth bit her lip. The pipe at the door bent and cried. Pull with me, Jace said. Voice thin but alive, she leaned back, feet flat, heart loud, and lifted with everything she had. Boots scraped, metal screamed, and then Jace's other hand found the rail. Together, they rolled onto the glass floor, wet and cold and safe for one breath. Guards pushed through steam with rifles up. Cade stepped into the doorway. Rain, shining on his armor like ice. "End this," he said, calm as a knife. Lyra stood between Cade and Jace, small but unbroken. The dead badge was gone. The hum was gone. The silence felt like a new sky. Pip lay smoking near the terminal. One tiny eye, dark, Jace pressed his palm to the console with shaking fingers. He opened a city channel, a loud one. A public one no one could mute. On every billboard, the code of the Veil bloomed like a cold flower. Logs, orders, dates, payments, all stamped with Cade Systems marks. Crowds below stopped under the rain and looked up. Shop lights dimmed, traffic slowed, drones paused mid-flight. A message rolled across the screens in simple words. "This device made you ignore living people," the message said. Cade's jaw moved once, then stilled. He lifted a hand to shoot the console. But Lyra kicked a loose bolt into his wrist. The shot cracked high. Harmless, loud enough to wake more eyes. Guard helmets turned. A few steps faltered. A few rifles dipped. Lyra walked to the frame of the door, steam staining her hair. She lifted her chin and looked straight into a nearby street camera. "I am not a ghost," she said. Voice small but clear, amplified by the open channel. "My name is not Anomaly. My name is mine." Her words traveled on every screen and speaker. People in markets, on trams, in kitchens, in towers, heard the rain and her voice together. They saw a girl the city had trained them to forget. And they could not forget now. Murmur rose like warm wind from 1,000 throats. Cade took one slow step back, behind him. His guards looked at each other through blue glass they could not hide behind anymore. One lowered his rifle. Another turned his lens away. "Stand down." A third muttered. The order not for Lyra, but for fear. Sirens changed their song from hunt to caution. Jace used the last seconds to push all files to public archive nodes. A final stamp flashed on the billboards, evidence preserved. Then the terminal blew a fuse and died in a soft black sigh. Cade retreated into rain with 2 loyal helmets close to him. He did not run, but his steps were iron heavy. "Warrants later," Jace said, breath rough, shoulder bleeding under. His hand, "Truth is out now," Lyra answered. And for the first time the city looked back at her and did not look away. They tied a cloth on Jace's shoulder and left the bridge when the storm grew tired. Pip twitched on the floor, then blinked. One dim light. "Hi," it whispered, brave and small, and Lyra laughed once, bright and wet with relief. Together they walked the high spine to the service stairs and down into morning. The workshop was smoke and ash and bent metal. They swept a space, set a pot on a small spare burner, made tea that tasted like stubborn hope. Jace fixed Pip with gentle hands and simple parts. Lyra cleaned the table and opened the vents to let the new day breathe. Neighbors came to the hatch, quiet at first, unsure. A fruit seller, a tram driver, a mechanic with oil on her cheek. They looked directly at Lyra, eyes soft, not sliding away. "Hello," the fruit seller said, and placed a warm bread on the bench. Lyra's throat tightened, but her smile was steady. "Hello," she said, and the word fit the room like light. Jace pointed to the back wall where a blank space waited. "Name there," he said. "If you want it." She took a piece of chalk with careful fingers. She wrote slow, each letter a small step out of the old night. Lyra. The name stood clean and bright on the wall. Pip flashed a tiny heart icon. Jace nodded once, proud and tired. Later, a courier drone dropped a sealed crate at the hatch. Inside lay more badges, dull and silent, their hum stolen by the truth. On top sat a note in plain handwriting. "There are others," it said. "Please help them." Lyra touched the metal and did not feel fear. "Then we fix what is broken," she said, voice calm, hands steady. Jace rolled up his sleeves. The city windows filled with clear morning, and the girl who had been invisible began her work in a world that finally saw her.